This episode intends to provide you support on preventing burnout and stress. Our guest today is Elisabeth Bieri, a psychologist, study coach, and neurofeedback trainer. After finishing her master's degree in psychology and educational science, Elisabeth studied bio and neurofeedback at the Schorresch Institute in Zurich. Please note, Elisabeth was gracious in doing this interview in English, though it is not her mother language. So thank you, Elisabeth, for your effort to share this beautiful knowledge. Enjoy.
Welcome to Changemakers, Elisabeth. I'm so glad to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
So let's jump straight in. Would you like to explain for our listeners how neurofeedback works and what effect it can have?
Okay, of course. So with neurofeedback, you can train your brain more self-regulation over your activities in the brain. So it's quite simple. In our practice, the clients watch a film and they have some electrodes on their head, and then they can start or stop the movie by a good or bad brain activity. So if they have a good activity pattern, the movie will just continue and they can watch it. And if the activity goes down or is too high in case of stress problems, the movie will stop. Your aim is to watch the film. You want to watch to continue how the story goes. So your brain tries to find out what can I do that the movie continues, and it's rewarding for the brain. And so it's a learning session.
So you're training your brain waves to produce an optimal amount of activity.
Exactly. And that's also my task. I have to control the activity pattern and to give the feedback to the clients. So someday they will do a really good job and the brain is getting to know what to do really fast, and on other days it's more difficult and I have to set the feedback a little lower. So that's my task there.
So how long does it take to notice any effect on the brainwaves or in the behavior?
So in the brainwaves, we usually see a change after 3 to 5 minutes. So the brain needs 3 minutes to find out what he has to do. And it's very individual when you see the effects in the behavior. So some clients tell me after the first session that they really had changes, and others will take 5 to 10 sessions, and then they start to notice some changes.
What led you in this direction? What made you decide to study brainwave activity?
I really was so fascinated by how the brain works, how the different structures interact with each other. And I think neurofeedback is the best combination. You have the scientific part with how the brain works and which structure affects what. And you have also the therapist part when you have to interact with the client and also to give him some tips how to cope with some problems. Yes.
So what's your favorite part about your workday?
Yeah, if parents come and say, wow, he was so focused last week at school. Also the teachers gave us some compliments, and this is really cool if we can get to this point. Or if someone has problems with impulsivity, and we train this part of the brain, and we also give him tools imagine you have a really warm belly and you breathe to that, and he can combine the brain activity and the other tools, and then he comes and says, hey, I had a situation yesterday and I really could calm down.
That must be really rewarding.
That's really cool, yes.
You see the result of your efforts, but also the client's
Exactly,
efforts.
It's both, yes.
Yeah. So what are the main reasons that clients would come to you for neurofeedback?
So the kids often come because of concentration problems at school. We have a lot of teenagers. They come with motivation problems and so lack of interest in school. And then the older clients, they really come because of too much to do at work, stress.
I think in the current situation, a lot of people are really experiencing a lot of stress and also anxiety. How can neurofeedback help with that?
So if we have a lot of stress, our brain is like constantly working too hard. So that's the system that calls limbic system. It's where our emotions are produced and also like our basic level for the daily functioning is produced. So when this system is like moving too fast, we're feeling like always like we're in stress, we can't relax anymore. And with neurofeedback, we can help this system to calm down and to function a little bit slower again. So it's like the sympathetic activation that is always like firing very hard, and we're not able anymore to have like the parasympathetic activation. And this is a really big disbalance. We have to get back to a balance, yes.
So it sounds like it's similar to the fight or flight mechanism, that if we're stressed all the time, we're always in this panic mode where we're ready to fight or we're ready to run, but we're just always stressed and we're not coming down from that like we should. Is that right?
That's exactly the point, yes, exactly. That's the same like structure in the brain, and it's a quite old structure, so it's difficult to have like a conscious effect on it. So with neurofeedback, we can get to this structure, yes.
Wow, that's amazing. You also mentioned emotional states. So can neurofeedback also help with things like depression, for example?
Yes, in case of depression, it's also that the limbic system is overactive, and our frontal lobe, where like the conscious control sits, is underactivated. So every emotion is just coming through and cannot be controlled. And with neurofeedback, we could like increase the control of the frontal lobe so that you have more self-control, or you can like inhibit some of the negative thoughts.
So you mentioned having more control over the brain and also being able to inhibit thoughts. That sounds to me a little bit also like meditation, learning how to really, empty your mind or really just focus on one thing at a time. Can meditation also have an effect on the brain like neurofeedback?
Of course, yes. Good question. So we also see that people who meditate regularly have a faster progress when they come to the neurofeedback sessions. So they are really used like to switch on some structures or some frequencies in the brain. If you meditate, you produce a lot of theta waves. If you are in theta waves, you have like a hypnotic state. So the conscious is really on yourself. And we also train these theta waves in stressed people so that they can like have more focus on themselves.
Meditation could also be working with neurofeedback.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
That sounds like that's something that you could do at home that would also help this training or generally your brain in general, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's also something we really recommend to do. Mm-hmm. So between the neurofeedback sessions, yes.
What else do you recommend for people to do?
Nutritional supplements we recommend.
Fish oil or
exactly,
algae?
Because it helps the neurons that they can communicate faster between each other. To have good sleeping rituals, some people we recommend to do like a diary with the 3 best things of the day.
Gratitude.
Yeah, exactly. So that goes all into the same direction, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yoga is also a good thing to do because it also puts the brain in this state of theta activity.
We did a episode about yoga just very recently and how we can use yoga to relax and ease stress and also improve concentration. So if you're interested in finding more about that, check it out under our Changemakers YouTube channel. Okay, so you mentioned diet, but also meditation and belly breathing you mentioned before, like imagining a warm belly that you're filling up. So these are all sorts of things that people can do at home to help support this process.
Exactly, yes.
What would you recommend for people struggling with motivation and procrastination?
So procrastination is really interesting. It's really important that this sort of people doesn't have this long to-do lists, because it's always there writing lists and plans and structures, and they will never do it. So we just skip that from the beginning. So when they want you to have a list, it's like a half-done list. So wow,
the
today,
opposite.
yeah, exactly. Today I did this, and this helps a lot if you don't have any to-do list at all. And for motivation problems, sometimes it helps to go back and see like the bigger goal behind what you're doing.
So neurofeedback can help with attention, concentration. You mentioned impulse control, but also stress, anxiety. It sounds like really anyone could profit from some neurofeedback training.
Yeah, you can say that. That's really true, because I think a lot of people are happy with how their brain functions, but we also have some clients that really come because of peak performance. They want to be even better or even more focused, and you can always be more concentrated at work, I guess, or it's important to prevent this stress from your work-life balance, yeah.
So just so our listeners can understand how this process works, how long are your clients usually training with you? Is this something you have to do regularly for years, or how does the process work?
So at the beginning, we would like make an analysis of your brain waves overall, so that we can see how your brain works and also how we can help you best. So this first analysis takes about 1 hour, and then we will like check what are your wishes, where do you want to do some progress, and then we compare this to your brain waves to see where we can have the best effect. And then one neurofeedback session is usually 45 minutes, where we do 2 or 3 different trainings, for example, one for concentration, one for stress relief, and another for focus. And then the session should be once a week at the beginning, or also twice a week is possible. And after 20 sessions, you should really feel the difference to before you started. We usually recommend about 40 sessions to have changes established in your brain, so that they can really stay as they are.
So long-term results.
Exactly, yes.
Okay, so 40 sessions, could we say a bit like riding a bike? Once you've learned it, then it's quite stable over time.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really you change the activity, how your brain functions, and this should stay like this after that. But we also have a lot of people, they do the 40 sessions and then they come like after 6 months again just to recheck how it works. And also I think it's a good feeling for them to see, yes, my brain is still working as I want it to, yes.
That can also help with motivation, I'm sure.
Of course, exactly.
So you mentioned you work with kids and teenagers, but also adults. What is the age range that neurofeedback can be useful for?
So my clients at the moment, the youngest is 6 years old, and my oldest client is 68 years. So it's quite a big range, yes. Yeah, I mean, we all know that the brain is really plastic, so it can help in every age.
Mm-hmm. So if a 6-year-old is training their brain waves, will any of that positive change be lost during puberty when their brain does a lot of a lot of development during puberty?
Yeah, that's really a good question, because the brain is really doing a lot of like restructuring, but we change the function level. So if we have an underactivation with a 6-year-old boy, then we will like increase the level of his brain function, and this will stay also during this reorganization phase.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, exactly.
Are there any books or further resources that you can recommend regarding how the brain works, or just where people can find out more?
So there is really one book that I recommend for my clients, and that's Das glückliche Gehirn. It's written by Daniel Amen. He's also a brain psychologist from the States, and he works a lot with imaging, and he has a lot of knowledge about what brain structure affects which behavior. So yeah, that's a really good book, and it's also like easy to read.
I've read it as well. The English title is Change Your Brain, Change Your Life.
Exactly, yeah.
Which is a very powerful title.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It is, yes.
Elisabeth, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. It was fascinating learning about how we can help our brains develop and also enhance performance. Just like training our bodies with exercise, training your brain can also have a profound effect on your mental health, your stress levels, and your concentration. So that's it for today, Changemakers. Have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll talk to you soon.